You don't have to memorize 78 card meanings to learn how to read tarot, but you do need to understand archetypes and communication through artwork. Today, I'm going to be talking about how you can expand your tarot practice, how you can deepen your tarot readings and get more from your session by understanding archetypes and artwork, and how you don't have to spend hours and hours memorizing meanings. It's much better, it's much more intuitive, the flow is so much easier when you understand the esoteric meanings behind tarot, when you understand the role of archetypes in life and how the artist is trying to communicate that with their art. Today, the deck that I picked for today is called the Tarot of Mystical Moments. This is a beautiful deck. It's very illustrative. The artwork is very surreal. It's got animals and figures, and the scenes are very dreamlike. Here, I'll just show you a couple cards so that you can see. Here's a woman. She's sitting on a lily pad holding an anatomical heart, playing it like a guitar, right? It's very whimsical and fantasy and dreamlike. Like, these are scenes that I would expect if I was dreaming, you know, standing on top of a building, a woman riding a horse made of leaves. These are artwork that they're meant to be absurd. They're meant to be not based in reality, but because they use surreal-like images, it activates our imagination, it activates our emotions, and they're trying to convey an archetype using symbolism and imagery and poetry very much. There's a sense of poetry with this artwork that I think is one of the reasons why I love this deck so much. So I'm going to choose a card from this deck, and I'm going to read to you what it says in the guidebook, which is a great starting point. But then we're going to look at the card ourselves and see how our own subconscious, our own interpretation adds and deepens to that meaning. So the card that I pick here, it's just sitting on the top, is the Moon. Now, just at first glance, like, let's say you don't know anything about tarot. You're just a complete blank canvas. And I want you to look at this artwork and feel, what's the first sensations that come up for you? What about this artwork responds to you? Are you intrigued? Are you scared? Is it alluring? Is it beautiful? Is it grotesque? Exploring how your initial feelings or reactions come up to the artwork will tell you a lot about your own internal biases and your own preferences when it comes to like this arrangement, this creation. So it'll tell you a lot about how the style of reader you are and how you naturally respond to things. We don't all respond to things the same way. Someone might look at this artwork and see the tentacles coming out of this woman's black dress and think that it's something in a horror movie. Another person will look at this and see her companion, the fox, and think of friendship and maybe fondly of their own pet or animal, right? This is kind of the beauty of artwork, is that everybody has a different experience. When I'm reading for clients, they don't need to know tarot. They don't need to know what the cards mean. But what I'm interested in is how they're naturally responding to the artwork. What are their emotions, their thoughts, their reactions that are coming up in the artwork? Because that is how your subconscious is projecting or understanding the scene or the context of what we're trying to analyze and understand. So I picked the Moon. Let me see what the guidebook has to say about it. This is to get you started about, it's supposed to be from the perspective of the creator. So if you don't have an opinion about, is this a good card? Is it a bad card? You know, what is this card trying to mean? What about sitting with tentacles coming out of your black dress, looking at a moon? How does this tell us about life? What does this tell me about the fundamental of being a human, right? If you find yourself there, don't worry, that's it's totally normal. So a good guidebook will give you keywords, and those keywords are like trigger points. They're like inspirational cliffs that you jump off of that will lead you down more connection paths. They are a way to kind of show you the poetry in the artwork that the artist was trying to convey, whether it be emotions or wisdom or a message. So in this guidebook, she gives you keywords for the upright meaning of the card and the reversed. Today we're just gonna focus on the upright meaning. So, according to the creator, it is shadow side, depths, illusions, unconscious, visions, deception, and mystery. This card shows a full moon in the night sky, a symbol of intuition, dreams, and the unconscious. The bright moonlight creates an eerie atmosphere in which we see a woman sitting against a wall. Deep in her thoughts, she has turned towards the moon. Underneath the woman lies a sea of dark water, representing the subconscious mind. Entwined with her dark dress, long tentacles are climbing out of the deep water, and they crawl up to the surface, symbolizing the woman's deepest fears and anxiety. The howling wolf next to her is her protector, but also represents the wild aspect of our minds. So that is how the creator and the artist decided to capture this archetype. What is the archetype of the moon? It's a beautiful archetype, but it's the archetype of the unknown, the unseen, the boundaries of fear and uncertainty. The example that I've experienced of the moon, that I think is a poetic way of explaining it, is when you're walking in the moon, when you're walking in the moonlight, and you see a shadow in the forest, and it looks like a bear. Is it a bear? Like, it could be a threat, it could be a fear, it could be a giant grizzly bear in the forest. Under the moonlight, you can't tell, but if you were to shine the sunlight on it, you'd see that it's not a bear, it's just a bush. It's just a bush that looks like a bear. That is kind of, to me, a poetic representation of the archetype that the moon is trying to illustrate here. We've got the moonlight, which kind of represents partial awareness, but things that are hidden in the night, hidden in things, parts of our life that we don't know. There's so many things in life that we don't know, whether it be about our personal life or navigating choices or the world. And when we're aware of that unknown, that can elicit fear and anxiety in us. That is represented in this artwork by the tentacles, right? The tentacles, they're grabbing, are they from an octopus or something that's going to eat you and grab you, like the spider web or something? The fear and the unknown. It's interesting that this artist decided to illustrate that using dark water. I think the technical term is like thalassophobia or something. That's the fear of dark water. It's a very common fear. Most people are very afraid of being in water that they can't see what's around them. They can't see what's underneath them or behind them. Is there a shark? Is there a poisonous water snake, water moccasin somewhere? Being in the dark water, especially water that we can't touch the bottom of, is a natural primal fear. It's a natural response. And so if you're doing a reading and the moon comes up and you ask your client what part of the image is attracting them, what part of the artwork is getting their attention, and let's say they're focused on the tentacles coming up from the dark water, then I would interpret that as them being very aware of the unknown and having a fearful reaction. They're having a fearful reaction to the artwork. That is the emotion that's coming to the surface. That reaction to the unknown, the reaction to uncertainty. Now, so I guess the animal next to her is the wolf. And that is supposed to represent like her wild companion, the part of her journey that is, more primal, more animalistic. A wolf can be seen in a lot of different ways. It has a lot of different symbolism, right? Sometimes a wolf is seen as like a predator or a threat. Other times it's like a spirit animal or a guide. Wolves can be our foe, but they can also be man's best friend, like our dog. And I think that opens up the door to a lot of different discussions about the relationships that we make with animals and with the wild and with the wild in ourselves as well. Now, I already talked a little bit about moonlight. Moonlight is a deceptive light in a lot of ways. It's a light that is more welcome than pitch darkness, right? I'm very thankful when I'm walking at night and there's moonlight. But I also know that moonlight can lie to me. I also know that if I look in the bushes and I think I see a bear, that I can't absolutely trust that it's a bear or a bush. I can't actually tell because I'm in the moonlight. And so there's a uncertainty, there's a mistrust, there's the exception of deception that comes with walking through a place where we don't have all the answers, where we can't see all the paths before us. And many times in our own personal life, that can show up. So what do you do? What do you do if you're walking in the forest in the moonlight and you see a bush and you can't tell if it's a bear or a bush? What do? You rely on your intuition. You rely on your instincts. You rely on what your gut sensation is telling you. And that is the whole purpose of the moon. Many times in life, we're not going to get the full answers. We're not going to be in the sunlight. Sunlight reveals all, right? We're not going to be in the sunlight. And not having all the answers, not seeing everything, knowing everything around us is fearful. It can be very scary. There might be sharks in the water. I don't know. I can't see everything in the water. There could be bears in those bushes. I don't know. And yet we still have to navigate the night. We still have to walk through the night. There are many times in our life where we have to proceed with uncertainty. And when we proceed with uncertainty, fear is a companion with us. Fear is going to come with us. Fear is natural, it's human, it's normal, but it's also a sensation that a lot of people find uncomfortable and distressing. And that's why typically when you get the moon archetype, people have a negative reaction to it because they're uncomfortable with fear. But fear is also a gift. I think it's actually a book called The Gift of Fear. I read it a while, but it's basically about how, yes, it's called The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. And the whole purpose of that book is about using our intuition as a survival tool, listening to our voice, and being able to navigate situations even if you don't have all the answers yet, even if you are faced with unknown. When we're faced with uncertainty, we can be lied to, right? And if you already know, if you can anticipate that you might be deceived or you might be lied to or you might be wrong about something, then instead of reacting in fear and panic, you can be a little bit more grounded, and instead of seeing fear as a threat or fear as something to reject, you can see it as a faithful friend. You can see it as a gift. And I think that is the full arc. If we were to explore the archetype that's trying to be communicated in the moon, for example, this is about humans' relationship between fear and the unknown. Fear is very much symbolized by our wild companion. Fear is something primal. It is something of our natural self, our animalistic self. It is not something that you can cut out of your being or reject. Fear can be a helpful gift, can be a helpful companion, but ultimately we have to trust our intuition and we have to use it as a survival tool. Don't be naive if you're walking in the moonlight. Don't be naive and think that there are no bears in the forest at all, because there absolutely could be a bear that looks like a bush, okay? Absolutely. But we have to be aware of that, and we have to be able to handle that. And when we go through our own dark times of the night in life, knowing how to navigate that with awareness and groundedness, knowing how a fear can be a friend, how fear can be a gift, how uncertainty is a fact of life. It is it is non-negotiable. And when we accept it, we transcend its difficulty. We no longer fight it. We're no longer paralyzed by it. We're no longer succumbed to the darkness. And I think that's what, when you pull up the moon card at your readings, that can be one of the big lessons to uncover and learn. Not just how maybe you or your client are navigating the unknown, but how you want to approach it, how to honor your own intuition, how to honor survivalism, how to understand it and not fight it, because it's a part of our natural primal being. So that's an example. I could go through every single card and do an in-depth analysis on it. But when I pull cards, that's how I experience it. I don't just say, oh yeah, tentacles mean fear and the moon means lies. And I'm not just some robot, repeating a guidebook. It is more about experiencing human emotions, experiencing a human archetype through the poetry and artwork. And when you're able to guide your clients into that space, they have their own experience. They have their own way of communicating what their tentacles might be or what their bear in the bush might be in their situation. So let's say you have a client who's starting chemotherapy and they have a lot of fear and uncertainty. They have a lot of anxiety. They know what the path is before them, but it's shrouded in moonlight. They can't see everything. And using the artwork as a way to work through fear and anxiety and uncertainty, as a way to navigate different pathways in front of them, can be a really healing, spiritually healing tool. And I think that's where the beauty of archetypes and artwork come in, because it doesn't matter what your situation is. It doesn't matter what the problem is. Everybody can relate to this because we're all human. That's the foundational principles of archetypes. We all can relate because we all experience fear. We all experience the unknown. For many of us, thalassophobia or being in dark waters is a very common experience. But that is really when you want to deepen your reading, you don't have to memorize it. Now that you have sat with the artwork and you've integrated the symbols in the artwork and you've made a connection and you've listened to a story, and maybe you've personally thought of the own time in your life where you were, afraid, or you didn't know if it was a bear or a bush in the forest. However you want to experience that, once you actually experience the artwork and you connect with the archetype in the artwork, now you no longer have to memorize the card. Now, the next time you see it, you automatically know the sensation and the meanings and the wisdom and the connection to the card automatically. You don't have to memorize anything, but it's a lived experience. And yes, being human is a lived experience, and bringing your human side to a tarot reading will give you a deeper and more richer understanding of how to use the cards and how to connect with these symbolisms and these our own inner wisdom. So Anyway, that's an example. Let me know if you want me to do more. I know these are kind of like in-depth reviews, but as I was learning tarot, that's what I would do. I would take a deck whose artwork I loved, like in this case, the Tarot of Mystical Moments. I would take a deck whose artwork I thought was fascinating, and I would sit there and I would connect with the artwork. What is going on here? What's the emotions? What are the themes? What's my reaction? And by all means, read the guidebook. The guidebook is there to get you started, but integrate it within your own self. Integrate it within your own meaning. Try to understand how you relate to that archetype and where in the world it shows up with you. All right. That's enough for today. I hope you guys found this interesting. And yeah, take care. Bye.